home users. And obviously, the work from home environment is different for the end user. So they're potentially working from a dining room table. They might be homeschooling or shushing their kids over their shoulder. They may have brand new puppies. There actually was a run on puppies because people were like, "I'm home. This is the perfect time to get a puppy." So a lot of rescues were having trouble even keeping puppies in stock. So just the craziness of trying to continue to do your job, and run your businesses from wherever you can set up shop. So but the challenge from the security standpoint is they're no longer behind the firewall that you control. They're not focused on your employee education and hover over links, and they're not focused on anything except for simply trying to get their job done as quickly as possible, trying to empty their inboxes as quickly as possible. And so it creates a ton of chaos, a ton of confusion, and obviously challenges from the standpoint of a cybersecurity provider. So so many MSPs have come to us and asked for essentially a Staples easy button when it comes to security. And candidly, going to a work from home environment has made things quite different and maybe even a bit more complex. So I always use the analogy of the Staples easy button. Michael, I know you have a bit of a different analogy. So can you share that as well?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the things is for all of you that are old enough to remember, and I'm seeing some gray hair on here, so I think I'm clear that we can go and I'll talk about this. But if you guys remember the Willy Wonka, and you'll remember, everybody was looking for that golden ticket because that was the thing. And it was a big, everybody was chasing it. Everybody wanted it. Everybody wanted to be a part of that. And what's happening today is every MSP out there, people that are getting into this space, they all want to chase having an effective cybersecurity offering, and it's becoming harder. Like Jennifer said, this work from home has made things more difficult, and it's not going anywhere. It is here to stay. And I don't know, what the percentages will fall, but when you hear the big names in industry saying that they are going to start shedding a lot of their corporate infrastructure and they're going to start getting rid of their brick and mortar locations, that's a sign of things to come, and the people that have been afraid of doing this in the past because they thought they wouldn't have the control, they wouldn't have the oversight, they would lose productivity. I think the last year has taught us that it's not a true statement anymore. So we're here today to kind of show you how to get the golden ticket so that you can be Willy Wonka and make it to the chocolate factory.
Awesome. And for those of you that are not familiar with the Solutions Granted name, we've been around for a very long time. We've won a ton of awards. I'm not going to read you all of them. There's more that are not on the screen. But the bottom line is we take our responsibility very seriously when it comes to providing security solutions for the MSP and MSSP community. And so we started to put our heads together and figure out what does a work from home cybersecurity stack look like, because as Michael alluded to, we're starting to see big names like Robert Herjavec and many other companies saying that they are not planning to bring 100% of their workforce back to the office. And it depends what study you look at. This is a Forbes study. I looked at a Gartner study. I looked at several different studies, and sometimes it's as high as 30, 40% of the workforce or 30, 40% of the companies are saying, we're closing. We are going to a 100% virtual. And sometimes, especially with these larger end of the small businesses, they're saying we are always going to have some percentage of our workers working from home. So while I don't think we're going to go to the point where 100% of workers are going to be remote, we definitely are never going back to 100% of workers being inside of the four walls of a building and therefore a network that we control. And certainly we were already seeing some of that with migration to the cloud, et cetera. But this very rapid forced adoption of a work from home environment has brought some changes that are here to stay. So anytime,
Jennifer,
yeah,
I'm even hearing people in their interviews now that it's becoming a standard question inside of interviews. People are saying, well, how much work from home do I get if I come to work for you? It's almost this implied, hey, I want to know, not assuming that all of it's going to be there, but definitely wanting to know how much of this am I going to get? So now what everybody hated and wasn't sure would ever work, now people are expecting and they want to have it before they know, and they're going to accept their jobs now.
Yes. And you mentioned efficiency. I know initially when there was this massive work from home movement, essentially overnight, we were seeing a little bit about inefficient working and how people weren't working as well from home. And then that trend reversed. So I believe it was simply, I've got to get settled. I've got to find my sea legs. I've got to figure out how to do business from home. And now that trend has reversed and people are actually finding that their employees are more efficient. So lots of different reasons, obviously cost of real estate being one. And we'll see, I think we'll see a huge trend, let's say inside of New York City, where real estate is ridiculously expensive. Many people will end up decommissioning vast swaths of real estate. It may not be quite as extreme in the Midwest where real estate is less expensive, but the trend is definitely here. And so anytime we are faced with a cybersecurity question or a trend that we're trying to make sense of, we always recommend that you go back to the basics and you go back to the NIST framework. I'm not going to do a deep dive into NIST. I'm going to make the assumption that most of you have at least a surface understanding of NIST. It is a cycle. In this slide, we've illustrated it as if it's a linear path, and you go from identify to protect, detect, respond, recover, and then we're done. But unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, it is a cycle, right? So we recover, and then we say, okay, lessons learned. Maybe we recover for client A, and then we do lessons learned, and we apply those lessons to the rest of our client base so that we can protect them better. Then we rely on our detection tools to stop various threats and to tell us, hey, something got through that protection layer. This is dangerous. Let's fix it. We respond, we remediate, we recover, we roll out those lessons learned to the rest of our clients. And so that is a very solid cybersecurity framework. And when we start to think about what about for our work from home employees or work from home clients, it's still going to rely on the NIST framework. And the biggest thing is, obviously, we don't have firewalls, at least at least for now. There are some technologies coming out that some people are starting to explore and test. But for the most part, your work from home people are not going to have firewalls. Most of them have data exclusively or largely in the cloud. Email is in the cloud. And so the protect, detect, and respond pieces are the ones that have shifted. So the framework is still there, the cycle is still there, but how do we protect and detect and respond when it's a work from home environment? So that's where we're going to focus today. The response has changed a little bit, but it's especially on the protect and the detect side that things have really changed. So Michael, anything to add there before we start to look at what this solution stack needs to look like?
So I think there's a really good analogy that I've heard, and this is around this idea of protect, detect, and respond. And so let's stop thinking about, for the last couple of years, everybody's been around the stop everything, beat everything, proactive, preventative, and that's a good story. And it is certainly a worthwhile journey, but we've gotten so focused on beating everything and stopping everything, we forgot about the detection, and we've absolutely forgotten about the response. And I think it's just because the industry is trying to get us to chase that shiny new penny every time. But I think what we have to look at cybersecurity as, and this isn't just about work from home, this is in general, think about it like electricity. Everybody has experienced an outage, okay? But everybody has also put a plan in place as to what that outage will do to them. Because what we're looking for is, we're not just waiting for the lights to go out to then figure out, well, how do we respond to this? What we're really looking at is, when the lights start to flicker, what does that mean to me? Does that mean that maybe you're now seeing light bulbs that have batteries in them, and those light bulbs will run for an hour with no electricity? So we're seeing that. How many of you have put in a UPS, not just in your offices, but in your homes? I know that I have. And then we go to the other side of that as generators. So if we think a little bit more about how we're dealing with electricity and when the lights flicker, and we start to strategically think about our cybersecurity around that way, certainly we're protecting everything. The detection on this is waiting for the lights to flicker and having a quick response. We'll stop failing and we'll start succeeding a lot more. And I think because we've all experienced it with electricity, it's going to be very simple to make this transition.
I like that analogy. It also, as you were talking, it reminds me of probably many of us have stories where we sold someone a backup solution, a BDR unit, a NAS, something just in the nick of time, right? Like we sell it to them on a Thursday and their server crashes Friday. And we're like, well, good thing they didn't decide to think about it another week because there would have been nothing we could do. And so on the IT side, we are used to planning for those contingencies. And we want to make sure that you're doing that on the cybersecurity side as well. Okay, perfect. So let's look at protect and detect. And like Michael said, even though we're approaching this from a work from home employee standpoint, many of the same principles apply, whether it's a work from home environment or not. And so the first couple of basics we want to make sure you have in place is something to protect your users from visiting a bad website, a malicious website, something that has evil intent. And so that would be your DNS protection. It's typically OpenDNS or Umbrella. And then the other thing is multi-factor authentication or 2FA. These are the initial pieces that your work from home people need to have in place. And again, DNS should always be part of your stack. 2FA should always be part of your stack, but it's become especially important when they are not behind the firewall. So there's nothing that's protecting them from the internet. They're probably accessing the internet via a router. And so we need to have some level of protection there. And then of course, multi-factor needed because of potentially even as a password manager, which we didn't list, but definitely those bare minimum type of starter, that's kind of like that first level of defense, if you will.
And please don't let your customer tell you that the 2FA part is too hard. I get it adds a few seconds of delay. I understand that it adds some complexity. I had a conversation with a partner earlier this week that they have a high net value investment organization that their executives got hit with a phishing email. And even after the attack, they are refusing to turn on two-factor authentication because it is too cumbersome. It slows them down. And so, don't let the tail wag the dog. I understand we don't want to tell our customers no. We don't want to say, hey, I get it. If you don't want to do it, it'll be okay. What it's going to do is it's going to crush your efficiencies. It's going to make for a really bad night. I have a lot of really bad nights because we do incident response when people are getting breached. And when I find somebody who's doing the right things, you will have no better friend because I know that you are just, unfortunately, the unlucky one. I'm a little less compassionate when people didn't put patches in for 287 days. True story. I'm really less compassionate when their password is love, dog, sex, coffee. Really, really not compassionate then. And when they tell me, yeah, we thought about doing two-factor, but it was just a pain. I was like, well, you get what you get. I don't know how you want me to fix this because this was simple, this was easy, it was cheap, if not a lot of times free, and yet you still chose not to do it. So please don't let your customers tell you what to do. You wouldn't tell your surgeon how to cut you. Don't let your customers tell you how to secure them.
That is one of the trends that we are seeing it's a concern bordering on alarm, is that too many IT pros are not willing to stand in the place of being the expert and to stand in confidence and in no, it is my way or the highway, and I am willing to lose you as a client. That's how passionately I feel about this. This is not about making a sale. I mean, how much does 2FA cost you? And then mark it up 2 or 3 times. We're not talking about a significant amount of money. We are talking about mitigating risk. And so you have to be comfortable having that risk-based conversation with the end user and standing your ground, because you are the expert. You do know what's best, and your clients don't. And we all laugh at how non-technical your clients are. We all saw the Zoom video with I am not a cat, like hysterical video, but those are your users, right? Like they can't figure out how to take the Zoom filter off. And so we all laugh at them because they're not technical, and they're not, which keeps you in business largely. But remember that when they're arguing with you about whether or not to put a critical security protection in place, if you need to, in the back of your mind, start playing I am not a cat, like that's who you're talking to. I don't mean in a disrespectful manner, but understand that you're the expert, not them. And so come from a place of expertise when you're making these recommendations. Okay, so then the next thing we would recommend is Cylance. That is the monitored endpoint protection that we offer. Obviously, we love Cylance. It's a phenomenal tool. If you're using something else that's a monitored, what I would call a true endpoint protection solution, then you have checked this box. But if you want to partner with us, we offer Cylance. And Michael, can you explain, especially as we go to the work from home environment, why is this so much more key than it was when they were just working in the office?
Sure. So even more so when you're working from home, you have less protections. So think about the protections we used to lose when we were all on the road and we were going to conferences and we were in hotels and we were in coffee shops and we were out traveling and meeting and greeting and having a good time. We had so much less protection being afforded to us because we're no longer behind that traditional firewall. Well, the same thing. Not a lot of organizations can afford to put a firewall at every single location. So you don't have your WatchGuard or your Checkpoint or your Palo Alto or your Cisco or your SonicWall. You don't have those at your customer's location. So you're losing an incredible line of defense. So now we're getting to the point where we really have to protect the end user. And we're really protecting the end user from their own stupidity. I had a guy that worked for me a long time ago, brilliant, had a PhD in electrical engineering, just a really smart guy. And he looked at me one day when I was getting frustrated about the uncommon sense that kept creeping into the trouble tickets we were doing. And he says, be thankful that we don't have a better class of clients, because if we did, they wouldn't need us. It's like, huh, all right. So thank you for being stupid. I appreciate that. That was his advice to me. And that's what we're dealing with, because we're dealing with so many distractions, so many responsibilities, and email has become such an overwhelming thing. And 99% of breaches are coming through email. So we have to have something really strong, really proactive and preventative, but something that is able to detect things and respond and being monitored. So again, if it's not Cylance and it's SentinelOne or it's CrowdStrike or it's Carbon Black or it's enSilo or it's anything that is more than just a tool, it is a tool that is being monitored by a set of professionals. You're farther down the path than most people. If you don't have it, please talk to us, because we can give it to you and make it simple.
And you'll see that the Cylance is kind of bridging the gap between both protect and detect. Because as Michael said, it's protecting, it's stopping things, but then it is also detecting other threats that were perhaps missed by some of your other tool sets. So it bridges, it covers more than one base. It's checking more than one box.
And here's a good example of that. I don't know how many of you still have clients with Exchange servers on site. Last week was a really rough week for Microsoft and Exchange servers, on-prem Exchange servers. None of the EPPs, none of the EDRs were capable of stopping the initial attack. So the ASPX files that were being injected into all of these Exchange servers that start the attack, nobody could stop that. But what it did stop is the next phase. So every attack starts in this idea of, let me get in, let me establish presence, a foothold or persistence mechanism, and then let me go for one of two things. I'm going to exfil data or I'm going to destroy things. This one was an exfil of data. Cylance, because of the way the exfil of data was happening, created a memory violation upon the execution of the exfiltration, and Cylance stopped it every single time. So yes, the customers got breached because the ASPX files got pushed there, which nobody could really stop because that was a Microsoft problem. And if you've read enough about it, Microsoft knew about this in January, just didn't think it was a very big problem. Shocker. But this technology, unlike something like a Viper or an ESET or a Trend or a McAfee or a Symantec or a Webroot, they didn't have the ability to do the same memory injection analysis for the exfiltration.
Okay, awesome. I love the real world kind of stories from the trenches. So, all right, and then the next thing we are recommending on the protection side is some type of cloud security. When we use Avanan, 6 or 7 months ago, you weren't really hearing a lot about cloud security. So, Michael, I'm going to punt this one over to you to explain what is cloud security, why do we need it, maybe even why weren't we hearing about it until relatively recently?
So I think, there's multiple sides of the cloud security story. The big side of it has been with 365 and G Suite and email. Everybody heard about cloud 10 years ago. And I think 5 years ago, everybody realized cloud was here to stay and it was going to get bigger. What we didn't realize is how much bigger it was going to get as fast as it did over the last 12 months. And the reason it got so big so fast is because people had to find better ways of collaboration. People had to find better ways of working outside of their offices. And if you look at what happened in Microsoft's portfolio, Azure AD exploded last year. People getting rid of their on-prem Exchange servers. What also exploded was Teams utilization for collaboration and SharePoint in OneDrive. And so now we've got all of this stuff being pushed to the cloud. And at the end of the day, and we see this a lot, 99% of the breaches that we respond to are email borne. And that is just about whether you go look at Verizon statistics or you look at any of the, what I'll call the tier 1 MSSPs, the top 10. And we are talking about the global players that are worth $1 billion+. Every single one of them say the same thing: email, email, email. And a lot of it is because of Naked 365 and the mail component. Because we think about the original players, think about the Proofpoints and the Mimecast and the Barracudas of the world. And there's others of them out there, but let's go back to Barracuda, because who hasn't been in an airport in the last 10 years and saw the guerrilla marketing with Barracuda? They did an amazing job of making their presence known and grabbing space like nobody had ever done in email security before. So we all had on-prem Exchange servers. We were all using Barracuda or something, either the appliance or started to migrate to the cloud because we knew we had to protect the Exchange server. Well, now we migrated to 365 for mail or for G Suite. And all of a sudden we all did this. We all wiped our hands and said, okay, Microsoft, you've got me. Google, you've got me. The reality is they don't have you. If they had you, they wouldn't have created things like ATP. What problem are they fixing with ATP if their basic offering was solving the problem? It doesn't. Spam, my opinion, and anybody can argue this any way they want, I don't care about spam anymore. Spam is normally something that 99% of it can end up in a junk folder, and I can once a day right-click look at it, or I can once a day right-click delete all and roll. But what we care about is the phishing aspect of it, because these are detrimental to your clients because they're giving up their credentials. They look good, they smell good, and people think, oh, I got to do it. So I click on it and I give them my credentials and I authenticate, and the attack is now well on its way. So cloud security, COVID gave cloud security a swift kick in the hind end. It is far more important today to make sure that you have a good email security solution and start considering how are you better adept at attacking and protecting things like Teams and OneDrive and Dropbox and Citrix ShareFile and SharePoint and Google Drive and OneDrive, because you got a whole lot of data floating out there in a whole lot of places and nobody's really thinking about it the way we used to.
Awesome. Okay, and then the last piece, again, we're building this ideal work from home stack, is monitoring 365 logs. So Michael, same question. This is it's a new concept. We haven't really, there's not a lot of buzz about this. There's not a lot of press about this. Obviously you mentioned Office 365, Microsoft 365 being something that's where most people are living now. Why is it so important to monitor those logs?
Well, let's call it new old, or call it old new, however you want to refer to it. Yes, is the idea around doing this new? Yes. Are the principles around it new? Absolutely not. So for those of you that have been around long enough, how many of you at least went into the firewall once a month and looked at the logs? Most of you did. How many of you went into your Exchange server and looked at the Windows logs, or went into your file server, went into your Active Directory server and looked at the logs for general purpose, for looking just to make sure things look good? So old way of doing it, why are we not doing this with 365? So we're building the stack is what we're building right here. And we're coming around to this idea of what does the basic stack look like? So let's tie this all together for a moment. You've got Cylance, so you've got this wonderful endpoint protection. We're going to talk about it like home security. Cylance is that, what are you doing inside your house? Are you taking Jennifer's German Shepherd and are you cutting it loose and saying, it's time, get it, because somebody's in the house and I don't like it? Are you reaching for your phone and dialing 911? Are you hoping that your baseball bat, or whatever your choice is and how you're going to defend your home? That's exactly what Cylance is doing on the inside. What Avanan is doing is now the front door, because that's where the attack is coming from. It's trying to get through your house. It's trying to get through. And if we can stop 99% of them, well, now you're not having to react quite as many times on the inside. But there's a lot of greenfield in between this. When we think about it, and I said your front door in your bedroom or inside of your house, but let's expand it for real. My workstation and 365 is in the cloud somewhere. It's out there. Now, what's happening between all of that space? And so that's where the monitoring of the 365 logs, but also the monitoring of the Cylance logs. So what we're doing here is we are bringing all of the logs from Cylance into our SIEM. We're bringing all of the logs of 365 into our SIEM. Our team is threat hunting against that. For those of you that don't know, we have automated threat hunting algorithms that run every 5 minutes. Every 5 minutes, we are looking at all of that data ingested and running the algorithms that we have said, these are the indicators of compromise that we want to look for. And then our SOC analysts, based on what those ATHs find, are now diving in deeper, opening up investigations. Oh, look, Steve brought his dog. Darn it, now I feel like I need mine back with me. Thanks, Steve, that was a good one. But then what we're also doing is we're monitoring the 365 logs. So I've got you 5 feet from your bed and I've got you as far away from your perimeter as you can, and I'm tying it all together. So this is the basic stack. And again, please add some DNS and 2FA to it, because those are key components. My belief, and the threat research team that we have, and Corey Clark, who is our director of threat intelligence, taking these few simple components and putting them together can drastically reduce your security threshold and get rid of about 80% of your vulnerabilities that are attacking your customers, which is a huge number. It is something that gives you the SOC, it gives you the SIEM, it gives you the endpoint, it gives you the email security, and it gives you all of the log monitoring that you need for your work from home. And honestly, I believe it's the 2021 go-to. It really takes care of the majority of what your clients need today.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got those 5 pieces on the screen. So this is, for everybody who's watching, this is your chance to participate. So I want you to find, you guys have all used Zoom before, I want you to find the chat feature. Oh, you know what? I can't see the chat feature. Hold on.
I can.
There it is.
I got
okay.
it.
All right. It was hidden. I know I can laugh at myself. I just said you guys have all used Zoom before. It's like it's my first time.
There it is. Jennifer, is this a cat moment?
No, I know it's not. It was hidden. Hey, I'm showing my screen. So I've got my PowerPoint and I've got the Zoom. You give me just a tiny bit of slack. All right. So 5 things on the screen. What I want you to do in the chat is write a number 1, because this is question number 1. I want to know how many you think are valuable of the 5 that we just talked about. How many do you think are valuable for your typical client? So question number 1, and then a number. So question number 1, you might say 0. I don't know why I'm even still watching this webinar. Or question number 1, yeah, you guys have put together a great stack. I think all 5 are valuable. Okay, awesome. I know you guys can all see the chat, but I'm going to scroll through real quick. Okay, so quite a few 5s. Quite a few of you are not playing along with my silly reindeer games, which is just super, super hurtful. All right, cool.
I know you're a very nice person too, Jennifer. I don't know why they're not playing.
Yeah. All right, it's, you know what? It's because I don't have my dog. It's because my dog.
Oh, that would be it. If you brought the dog to the table, you'd get more views. They would click more likes.
I know I can hold up a picture of my dog, but that's not quite the same. They're not cute and furry. Okay, so question number 2. So I want you to type a number 2. And how many do you already have in place for the majority of your clients? Because maybe you have started deploying 2FA, but you haven't quite gotten it rolled out to everybody. I would still check that box cautiously. Obviously, we're not talking about a rollout strategy today, but so question number 2, how many of these do you have in place already that are in the process of being rolled out or in the process of being sold? Okay, so we've got
Leanne is killing it.
Yeah, Leanne's got 4. Scott is saying 0 this way, so maybe you're approaching it from a little bit of a different angle. No worries. And even fewer played with my reindeer games that time. It's fantastic. Lisa, I don't think they're diving off of the webinar. Like I do not like her. I'm going away. Okay, so clearly, I think every one of you saw the value. Every one of you have a few gaps. Scott, I'd love to learn, and we don't have to do it on the webinar, but I'd like to learn what it is you're doing, because you may have a little bit of a different perspective. Happy to hear what that is, and Michael will, you know, chat with you. Maybe there's gaps, maybe there's not. Maybe you've come up with a unique way of approaching this. Zero worries. So obviously there is a need. Let me ask question number 3. This one is going to require more characters, but roughly, of the number of endpoints that are under your management today, roughly what percent are working from home? So is it 20% are working from home? Is it 100% are working from home? It might be a question mark. I mean, if you have a question mark, make a educated guess, because I'm just curious. We're all representing different parts of the country. Some people are still super locked down, some are not. So, okay. Yeah, so we've got everything from a 5% to 60%. So it's still very varied, spread out, whatever the right word is there. Okay.
Hey, Charlie, I'm going to pick on you for a second. So is your 5% that's working from home maybe because you have more manufacturing type customers?
I'm not sure. 5% might even be generous. Our customers are a lot of hospitals and doctors' offices as well, so they're always in the office.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, telemedicine has come a long way, and we've seen some amazing improvements and really awesome things. I've even seen some of my employees that were not feeling well, and instead of going, they would do a telemedicine with their traditional doctor. Doctor would assess them over the phone, call in a script to CVS or Rite Aid or Walgreens or wherever it was, and away they went. So yeah, in the medical community, I think telemedicine is going to be huge in the next 3 to 5 years, but you know, nothing's going to replace the bedside manner. Nothing's going to replace that. So yeah, that makes sense why you would have far fewer if you have a heavy medical focus. Thanks for letting me pick on you.
Spencer had 5% as well, but most people had, you know, 25, 30% and up. So, okay, awesome. Thank you for letting me do a quick survey, because as I mentioned, it's hard. Every state is doing their own thing. So it makes it a little bit difficult to figure out what your base looks like.
Yes, Jennifer, every state is doing their own thing. Huh, Lydia? Texas is just leading the charge with that one, and Mississippi.
Yeah, there's a handful of states that are lifting restrictions and trying to go back to normal. So we'll watch it. We'll let them be the test subjects, and we'll see what happens. So, all right, we definitely want to open up for Q&A. I'm curious, for those of you who said I'm not really approaching it this way, love to hear what you're doing. Either we can unmute you, or you can put it in the chat, or we can have a dialogue later. But obviously, we are always here to support. You can either email us, sales@solutionsgranted.com. What we have done is made sure that all TAG members are going to talk directly to Michael. And this small business work from home bundle, this basic cybersecurity work from home bundle, it is that easy button that so many MSPs have been asking us for. So Michael, why don't you talk about, obviously it's the three main pieces that we talked about that aren't DNS and are not 2FA because we don't offer that. But can you talk about that bundle quickly, the pricing, and then I want to do a 3 to 5 minutes on how to sell it, because we are also hearing that in the marketplace. How do I go out to my small business clients and sell this at a really healthy margin? So Michael, you go first.
I think as everybody's looking for the easy button, and we want to give you the golden ticket so that you can go to the chocolate factory, establish a standard. I believe this standard will keep you healthy, will keep your clients safe for most of the attacks that are out there. And again, we're talking about Cylance Protect with all of the SIEM and SOC services around it, giving you the identify, giving you the protect, giving you the respond, giving you what you need. Then we get to the email security aspect side of it, like we talked about with Avanan, really stopping where 99% of the attacks are originating from, and all of the log gathering, monitoring, analysis, SOC services, but also we're retaining those logs for 12 months. So if an event comes by, if one of your customers have regulatory compliance, we see it a couple times a week where somebody comes in and says, hey, the auditor's here and it says, I need to prove that I'm doing this. I have to provide a sample. And can you show me what an alert looks like? We have all of that information because we're keeping it, and we can say to them, when do you want to see it within the last 12 months? So we can pick a date and time that really proves. Let them go back 60 days, let them go back 9 months, let them go back 11 months and 27 days. It's there. Also, if they get breached and a forensics analysis has to be done, we're able to pull back all of this data so that it can be compiled and given to a forensics company so it can be taken care of. Now, where I believe the key and the power to this is always going to be around, can you really sell it? And is it priced right? So we believe that it is. We are just under $5. So you're going to get this at $4 and some change, like $4.93 or $4.90. It's not $4.93, I think is what we said. So think about that. You're getting your endpoint protection with your SIEM and your SOC services. You're getting your email security. So that email security is going to protect you from phishing, spear phishing. It also has the account takeover monitoring. So we all hear about business email compromise. That monitoring is there. So when the account starts to be accessed from an illegitimate location, somebody that shouldn't be there, you're going to get advanced notification. We're going to be able to give it to you. So it isn't days, weeks, and or months that you find out, or the emails now being forwarded out. We're doing all of the 365 log monitoring, and we have all of the common IOCs already prepped and ready to go. Somebody has set out of domain forwarding up. We know it, we alert to it, we move to it fast. Somebody has disabled two-factor authentication. We know it, we alert to it, we move to it fast. Somebody has created a new administrator account to elevate privileges. Again, we know it, we alert to it, we move to it fast. There's lots of other things that we're also doing, but if any of you have ever experienced a breach in 365, one of those three things is normally the one that kicks it off and gets it going.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to call it $5. It's $4.93, but
yeah,
for ease of math, I'm going to call it $5. So one of the questions we get a lot is, okay, that's great. It's $5 per endpoint. What should I sell it for? And so whether you choose to double that and sell it at $10 an endpoint or even $15 an endpoint, it is still extremely sellable, if that's a word, at that dollar figure. So let's just use the $15 and let's pretend like you're going out to pitch to a 10 user network. So $15 per endpoint times 10 users, not factoring in the server because my 11 times tables are very rusty in my head. Actually, they aren't even in my head, but we'll just say 10 users, $150. So when you build that value for the end user, $150 a month is very, very reasonable for everything that they're getting. Now, that factors in some labor and still gives you a very, very healthy profit margin. Now, when you're factoring in labor, you're right to say, okay, that's great. The tool costs me $5, but I do have labor that I need to factor in. But what I don't hear a lot is that you also have to factor in the labor that you're saving by switching to a better tool, a more robust tool set, because you probably do get tickets like, is it okay for me to click on a link? Or you get the tickets when the client didn't ask you that and they went ahead and clicked on it anyway. And now there's cleanup that has to be done. And that is labor that you don't have to worry about. So if you take the $5 per endpoint and you mark it up to 10, you're probably safe. You mark it up to 15, you are golden as far as factoring in your labor. And then it's a very easy sale financially. And then of course you want to position this as a risk aversion technique. How comfortable are they with the risk that you are mitigating? So the risks are things like I would say to you, downtime. Now I encourage you not to say downtime to the end users because they don't necessarily understand what that means. Although I do think this coronavirus has done you a huge favor because they now realize how important the server is. They now realize how important infrastructure is. They can't get to their printer. They can't correspond with people. They now realize how crucial and how dependent they are on their technology. Whereas a year and a half ago, if you had said downtime, they would have been like, no big deal. And now they're like, whoa, wait a second, I am super dependent on all of my data. And so downtime maybe does have a bit more teeth to it now, but I would still explain that they can't process payroll. Maybe they can't pay bills if these kind of cyber incidents happen. And so make sure that you're stacking the deck in your favor by explaining to them how you can mitigate their risk. And so for that reason, we feel like cybersecurity is a very easy sale when it's positioned correctly. Will you sell everyone everything every time? Not necessarily, but we are seeing clients with very, very good success selling cyber. So we wanted to slide that in there. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Jennifer, I'd say the other thing is to consider is that as you have your non-negotiables and you have your package in place that hey, to do business with me, you have to take these things. Make this offering one of those things because what it's going to do is it's actually going to increase your operational efficiencies. And by increasing those operational efficiencies, when you guys have all done the math and you say, okay, for every 20 clients of X size, I need one technician or I need one engineer. What happens when you stop getting all of the stupid requests of, is this phishing? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? Is there something that I have to be concerned about? And you get rid of 99 of those requests and then you only have one. Your factor goes from 1 to 20 to potentially 1 to 30 or 1 to 35 because you're not dealing with the dumbass questions. I ran a help desk at the Department of State for years, and we had 3 different classifications of machines that we were supporting. It was roughly 1,000 users. So we had 3,000 computers that we were supporting. 80% of the tickets that we got in were, forgot my password, I can't print, and is this legitimate? Well, I can't get rid of the password one, I can't get rid of the print one, but I can get rid of the legitimate one 99% of the time. That is a huge win for you in your operational efficiencies, which has a huge bottom line number to it.
Excellent.
Hey, I'll just let me chime in. So just so everybody knows, I've already have all of this in our pricing calculator. We are obviously recommending a 2x markup on this, so that $10 is a minimum. And for all the newer folks that I'm going through on building their offerings right now, we are recommending these as part of just the core offering. So when you're selling managed services, this is part of what's included, and it's not an option.
Perfect.
So
good.
It's good to have a standard, Lane.
Yep.
Sure makes life easy, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I know we have about 10 minutes. I want to open it up for Q&A. I've had a couple of people ping me directly that I've been able to answer. But what questions do you have? You can either unmute, or you can type it in the chat, and we can dialogue there. And then I'll pause for a couple of minutes. And if we don't have any questions, we'll give you 7 or 8 minutes of your day back.
Man, no questions. Lydia, you're chatty Cathy most of the time. You got nothing?
I would like to get some Avanon collateral though. Sales related materials that show Avanon being the thing we want to add in.
Yeah,
We have-
Jennifer, if you can just get me that one, you have that 2-pager on that. If you could get me the first page in a like editable format, then we can pull it into our library and put people's logos on it and stuff
Yep.
as they ask for it.
So Leanne said, does this come as a package? So that's what we're recommending. It does not have to come as a package. So historically, we have always done everything a la carte. And it was probably some of my success and a lot of my failure that I assumed that if I brought the horse to the water and I gave you multiple puddles to drink from, you would choose wisely based on as much education as we can give you. We do believe that this needs to be done as a package and that these 3 components all need to be done together. But I'm also not foolish. Let's say you're using iron scales, which I know very well. I know how it competes against Avanon. I understand their API play and what they're doing. I'm not going to tell you to switch for the sake of switching because it's not a bad product. It's actually a really, really good product. So can it be done separately? Absolutely. Are there reasons why you may want to do it separately? Because you have a different compensating control and you've got something that has the business email compromise and it's heavily focused on it. And you've got, I mean, even the fact that some of you might be using SentinelOne and you might have all of that monitoring and everything, and you're okay with paying more and it works for you. Cool, then fill in the gaps. Just make sure the package looks like what we discussed, and I think you'll find some really great levels of success.
Yep, awesome question.
And
You
Leanne,
offer-
I can translate their products line items to what you saw here today. If you want, just give me a call. So
Thank you, Lane. I'll do that. Thank you.
So
Alright,
Keith,
I got a question.
hit it, Steve.
All right, so that 493, is that also including the SOC?
That is the SOC. So you
That's
get,
every, I mean, that's the endpoint, the antivirus?
so let's make sure that we are identifying and clarifying what the SOC means.
Okay.
So we're
Alright.
feeding all of the Cylance logs into the SIM. We're feeding all of the 365 logs into the SIM. The SOC team is monitoring, analyzing, detecting, responding, and reporting to everything that we see in both of those products and bringing resolution to you. Now, that does not include ingesting firewall logs. It doesn't include workstation logs. But at the end of the day, this gets you really, really far down the road and you get the SOC services around these products.
Okay. And there's no additional hardware that you would have to buy to
Nope.
put in the monitor on the switches?
So this is not switch monitoring. Remember,
Okay.
this is your antivirus, your endpoint protection with your EDR and all of the log monitoring and event monitoring that's created. If you need firewall monitoring, if you need switch monitoring, if you need other monitoring, yes, we have those services as well, but not near as easy to put that down to a cost per user per month like we can do on these.
Okay. All right, that's what I was wanting to verify.
But again, and Steve, I don't know if you responded, as you're seeing your customers' businesses transform, are you seeing more of them stay in a work from home scenario? Or you see that they're all going to come back and they're going to be 90% back in the office?
Right now, a couple of the customers that we've been working with, one, they shut down for about 2 weeks and then they reopened and they've had everybody working from the business the whole time. A couple other companies that I've worked with, I mean, they've got 1 or 2 that might stay home like 1 or 2 days out of a week. So what they're doing is everybody's starting to come back, but maybe 2-3 days out of the week, they're going to work from home. So they're going to have them back in the office for
Hybrid.
maybe 1 to 2 days. Right. They're going to be in the office 1 to 2 days and then working from remotely. And just that's going to probably become their new norm.
And so then
So
you
like
just have to look and
Mondays and
see,
Fridays, everybody's working from home. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, everybody's in the office.
man, that's a brilliant one. Mondays and Fridays, nobody wants to come in on Mondays and everybody wants an early weekend. So that was a great one.
Yeah, that would be good. Now on the monitoring of 365, you'd have to be the manager of the
Nope.
Office, you don't have to be the manager of the Office
No.
365. So they bought their Office. Let's say with one company we're looking at, they bought their Office through GoDaddy, who does their web. And so they have the administrator password, so you wouldn't have to have that.
No. So the beauty with Avanan and the 365 log monitoring, they are both API integrations. So, what you used to know about email security is you had to change the MX records, take your mail away from something to send it something to get back clean. No longer is that necessary. That's how we get the strategic advantage to understand a compromised account in action, because we can see the authentications where the MX-based technology can't see authentications. We're doing the same thing with the 365 log monitoring. Microsoft their API has gotten brilliantly fast and strong over the last 12 months. And it's afforded us the opportunity that now we have quicker, faster implementations, no hardware, no software, really little to no interaction. You authorize the API. It's a token and key shake that's authorized one time and it's done. The Avanan implementations will take us and you about 15 minutes to complete. On the 365 log monitoring side, it might take 2 minutes. We literally set up everything on our side. We get into a screen sharing session, ask you to put in one set of credentials to authenticate the API usage, and it's done. And it's never to be done again. So it is, like Jennifer was saying, when you talk about the labor that's involved in it, the labor around this is so negligible.
Okay. Hey, Michael, real quick, you said earlier you're in Virginia. What part
Sure.
of Virginia?
Northern Virginia, in a little town called Woodbridge. It's about 20 miles south of Washington, D.C. on Interstate 95.
Yep. I'm in Roanoke.
Okay. Yeah, you know where it's at then.
Yep, I do.
Small world.
Hey,
Do I know?
Leanne, why did you come in peeking in with this beautiful picture of like sailboats and water behind you? That was not fair.
And then you left.
I know. She rolled in like a hot minute and tempted us all and then rolled out.
The screen is at a different level to what it normally is, so it looked kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
No one was looking at you. We were all looking at your sailboats.
That's Victoria, BC.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That's beautiful. It really was.
Very nice. All right, I know we have just a couple of minutes left. I don't see any other questions coming in. So I'll just remind you, you can either scan the QR code or email us sales@solutionsgranted.com. We are always happy to get on the phone, talk this through with you, answer any questions that you have, reshare the pricing as needed. Essentially, we just want to support you in any way that we can. So Lane, I think I'll pass this over to you to wrap us up.
Yeah, we thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Michael. I think this was good. Steve, I do want to talk to you about having an Office 365 customer that you're not selling it to. So
All right, that's fine.
yeah, we want
Well, it's one that we just brought on board,
okay.
I think back in January.
Okay. But anyway, so I'll reach out to you, Steve, talk about that later. But hey, thanks everybody. We are going to have this recorded. We will have it up on the website soon. And then, as I mentioned, I already have all of this stuff into our pricing calculator, and I can go through with you how to price and position this and sell it to your customers as well. So on that note, we'll close up, and thanks everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you, guys.